My name is Mark Lewis, and the title of the show is the title of the piece that I'm showing, Rear Projection, Molly Parker. The project is a film that I shot a couple of years ago using traditional 35mm rear projection, which is the way in which very often between like the 30s and 60s, where in studios would place film backgrounds behind actors to give the impression that they were like on a bus or in a car or traveling around, usually traveling shots, but often it's for the case with directors like Hitchcock and others, to actually give you the impression that someone might be sitting in a cafe in Buenos Aires or in London or something. And so I use this process has more or less disappeared now, but I use this process to make a portrait of an actress. Her name is Molly Parker. She's in the title of the film. And I just shot her in a studio in Los Angeles, you know, using this traditional method of projecting a background that I filmed myself in Canada. And that's it. Molly's pregnant, and she was throwing up the whole time we were shooting. Or she was pregnant. She's not pregnant anymore. I always think I don't have any ideas, so the only thing I ever start with is just like a very vague, just a really vague sense that I want to do something, and it's usually based on something I've seen, and what I'm doing is never really understood, at least by me, until it's finished. So I would say that I work in the absolute opposite way as of an idea artist. I really don't have ideas. I just have a sense that I like the way something is phenomenologically, and that I want to try and understand how that phenomenon, whatever it is, can be transliterated or transformed into a filmic language. Well, I can say it does and it doesn't. Again, going back to that, I mean, I was just being a little bit cute when I say I don't have any ideas, but I also don't have a project either. So I don't really feel that I have a project that I'm pursuing. I just feel that I move from one film to another. And obviously, when you make a film or you make a new work, something you discover or something you learn about the process can affect the way you choose the next project, and that just seems to be a kind of natural way in which, you know, human beings live and work. So I have no project. I don't have an ongoing project that I'm working on. I stumble from thing to thing. The moment when film understood it could put itself inside of itself is really the moment it became fully modern, because that's the moment it joined the kind of conditionality and materiality of the other forms. If you think about in painting and montage and photography, that the idea that you could take the thing itself and use it to produce an image of itself inside of itself, and that's even if in film that happened rather unknowingly and without consciousness, it happened nevertheless. So there's something special about having two different perspectives. I mean, to be blunt, there's something very special about having two perspectival spaces inside the same image, and that goes right back, you know, to early modern painting, when landscapes were put behind portraits, or rather I should say portraits. If you think of a painter like Jan van Eyck, where in very early modern painting, where the sitter itself, the subject of the ostensible subject of the painting is situated in relationship to a background which enjoys a wholly different compositional design, and that dysfunctionalism, if you like, which is what makes that work so fascinating and so extraordinary, is something which in rear projection you get. Again, you get this kind of foreground and background which aren't quite right. I know what I get from it, and that's about all I can. That's about all I can judge, you know, because that's sort of kind of the working methodology that I have anyway, which is that when I find something at least fascinating that freezes me, that fixes me, you know, that makes me stop moving, I imagine that there might be someone else who might feel the same in the same situation, and I make the work for that person, I suppose. So. I was in Vienna last week. I watched Godard's Le Mépris for the 100th time, and I watched, what else did I watch? Oh, and I cried. I cried a lot watching, I couldn't believe I cried. I cried a lot watching Viaggi to Italy, Voyage to Italy by Rossellini. People always say that, in press releases, the thing you said about my influence from mainstream and Hollywood and avant-garde cinema. I never said that ever, and I don't think that I have any special relationship to cinema. I think I'm like any artist, or like any human being, I suppose, for that matter. I love film and watch it, but I don't really think that I have I don't think I have a special engagement with the history of cinema. If I'm looking at films, it's either just out of pure pleasure, like anyone else, or it's to try and steal an idea. If I'm, like something, when I'm desperate for something. So, but basically, I would say, that my ideas for art or film come out of the history of art, and that includes the history of film. And I don't think I have a special predisposition towards film. I mean, I'm obviously working in film, so it's hard not to think of film when you see my films. And I'm not making paintings, but I have to say that the history of art is the history upon which my work is made. I would say that even though I'm making moving pictures, and that's a kind of contradiction in terms, I understand, my biggest interest is in the history of picture making and pictorial art and how to depict. How do you depict phenomena in the world in a way which allows a spectator, as I said before, to be able to stop in front of it and to think and to be there long enough that the process of thinking about what is in that picture makes them think more comprehensively and more profoundly, even if it's just a tiny little bit about the world. And that's a sort of, I don't suspect, it's a fact, that is the history of picture making from the first shadow on a cave wall. It's how to transliterate an experience of life into one that's removed from life so that one can reflect back onto life again. And so I don't think cinema has any special relationship in that regard. In fact, you could argue that it has a lesser relationship to that because it's never stopping, and it never allows the spectator to actually look long enough at any one thing because the image is constantly disappearing and being transformed by the next picture. So in fact, you could say that the history of cinema is a less interesting history than say the history of photography and painting. I don't know. I mean, I suddenly, what would I have been? I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to join the army, but that was a really stupid idea. So I'm glad they rejected me. I think I'd be an artist. I don't know how to do anything else. What was that? Oh.
Which will no doubt be
You'll keep that in, I hope. But please, for a title that it wasn't mine.